Hello guys and girls, welcome back. It's Airsick Hydra here, and in today's video we're going to be starting off a brand new series looking at weapon balance within Inquisitor Martyr, the rather spangly new 40k ARPG. What I'm going to be doing in this series is talking about each weapon subcategory, so a type of weapon, and talking to you about the balance between them. What I'm not going to be doing is talking about lore specificity, or how much players like or feel a certain ability should be tied or sort of attributable to a weapon. That is a separate topic altogether. What I'm going to be talking to you about is how well balanced these weapons are. So to start things off today, I'm going to start with the assassin, and I'm going to start with the sniper rifles because I think they're some of the simplest to start with. So starting off, we have the Exodus rifle, and your main combination when using this weapon will be alternating between single shot, which carries armor piercing, stun, shock and single target, alternating that with sniper shot whenever it's available, which has shield piercing, knockdown, knockback, critical strike, sniper and single target. So both of these abilities have a large amount of shield piercing and shield well ignoring or bypass, making this very good for taking down armoured targets, specifically single armoured targets. A very slow rate of fire with I think 1.5 seconds being the most spammable ability, but a very fun weapon to use. Now the only downside to the weapon is the two other more situational abilities that yes, you might weave in between the other two when you've got a spare bullet here and there. The Hellfire shot, where you have a 3-second splash damage cooldown, which does apply a dot as well, and the Pervasive shot, which is a piercing, so sort of a slight variant of an AoE type damage. The weapon's benefits as well aren't just single target damage though, it also has a lot of utility to it. So we also have the stun and shock on the first, and we have the knockdown and knockback on the sniper shot as well. So this can really be used to control targets quite a lot, and really does sort of neutralise the threat which a lot of enemies will pose against you. So a very good weapon. Moving on from here, I'd now like to move over to the actual sniper rifle. Well, it's called the sniper rifle, but it's perhaps one of the least traditional of the sniper rifles. So here, we don't have the same rotation being left click and left click and aim shot. That is not the optimal rotation. What you'll notice is the left click for single shot. Although it's on a low cooldown, it is very low damage. It is a dot ability. So if you're going to spam this, you want to spam this on multiple different targets. It does do a little bit of armor breaking, but for such a low damage ability, that's not particularly useful. If you're going to be spamming things in a form of useful rotation, you want to be alternating explosive shot, and you want to be alternating that with sniper shot. So you're simply going to be going back from one to the other, occasionally weaving in a dot in the middle, or occasionally weaving in shoot and retreat if you want to apply a slow stun, etc. to the enemy. So what this means is that you're going to be using explosive shot probably every 1.5 seconds. This means, and by the way, this is an area effect, this means that it inherently does less sort of anti-armor damage, but does much more anti-infantry splash damage. This is, of the sniper rifles, the anti-infantry, anti-group, anti-pack, anti-horde of them. Now, whether you like that or not, again, is another topic entirely, but that is the strength of this weapon in comparison. Of course, we do have the added bonus, though, of physical vulnerability being added to this weapon, giving you 10% physical damage over for an extra 5 seconds, blah, 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 which also does, of course, help your group. Very useful to have in addition to the armor breaking. So this weapon is still semi-useful against armored opponents, but really only the sniper shot. The AoE does some damage, but it's not as noticeable. And again, a little bit of mobility coming in from shoot and retreat, where you do a salvo, which is sustained or automatic fire while slowly moving backwards, which disables the target for 2 seconds. So it does have a nice bit of utility as well. Perhaps not quite though, not quite as much as the Exodus, but not far off of it. Now moving on from here, I'd like to go to the needler sniper rifle. A very unique form of sniper. Perhaps the more mobile of the two, or of the two we've talked about thus far. But let's now talk about the actual base rotation. So the base rotation comes from applying short burst, which is rapid fire, meaning it fires 3 shots in quick succession. These will then apply a dot. You'll notice the actual base damage from short burst is pretty terrible. It does have bonuses to critical strike, there is a very slight spread, and it applies the Needler Toxin, which lowers the enemy movement speed. So this weapon is really here just to apply dots. Now, why are we interested in spamming this, I hear you cry? Well, your main task will be alternating this with Sniper Shot, which inherently does more damage based on the amount of poisons that are on a target. This is something very, very useful to know, and it also increases your critical hit chance for Sniper Shot when they are under this, and also the critical hit strength as well as chance when they're under the effect of all of these poisons. So you can increase your critical hit chance and strength by 10% by applying all of those stacks. That being said, the cooldown is only 3 seconds, and I wouldn't wait till you've applied 10 stacks to start firing this, but it's something that's quite useful. Perhaps worth also mentioning that if you fire 3 times with the first ability, that is 9 stacks. So it actually works fairly neatly. Just bear in mind you're firing 3 times with each single round of the first ability. So the other main factor here that makes this somewhat unique is it also stops an enemy healing for 20 seconds. Now, I'm classing this as utility, but it is perhaps one of the most important utility abilities in the game thus far. It's the only one that controls healing to this degree. I believe there's one other melee weapon too, but we'll come back to that in another video. Now, the other 2 abilities help sort of offshoot the lack of any AoE damage. We have a very, very long cooldown, 8 second, for Needle Blast, which is a ranged AoE splash damage ability. The damage isn't terrible, it does apply dots all around, it's not amazing, and it's on quite a long cooldown. So out of the AoE capabilities thus far, the Needler is the worst. However, it does have the most spike damage and probably the most useful utility thus far, so something worth considering. Now, as well as this we do also have the sort of strafing backwards while shooting salvo ability, which slows an enemy instead of stunning them, so slightly different to the other sniper rifle. And, well, something else that I haven't mentioned is there are some very nice skills that increase your movement speed after doing a rapid fire ability. So this build really does revolve around slowing an enemy, buffing yourself, whittling them down, and then hitting them with a big kiss every now and again. That is really how this weapon feels to the character. And it is a nice weapon. It's quite enjoyable to use, and it's very, very unique. Now, moving on from there to the last, we have the Long-Lass rifle. This is the last technical sniper rifle. So yes, it's a slightly longer variant of a lasgun, I guess. What we have here, now we have a choice in terms of base rotations depending on what build you want to go for. You can either alternate single shot with Sniper Shot if you want to build into critical strike, because both of these will give you a 10% bonus, so you could quite easily abuse that and build into it. At which point though you won't have any AoE in your build. Now instead of AoE I'm going to say area damage. By area I mean quantity of mobs. The full auto does have slightly higher damage than single shot, and that's even taking into account that this has plus 10% on this weapon. So what I'm saying is full auto can be quite powerful, and as it has a high rate of fire, can be used to take down large packs fairly quickly in comparison to some of the other rifles. Now that's why on the chart you see I have given it some area damage, because yes, it doesn't have splash damage, but it does have rapid fire, allowing you to kill more mobs per given second than some of the other rifles. That being said, it still isn't really comparable to the Sniper and the Exodus. I'd put it somewhere around the level of the Needler in terms of its AoE capacity, unless you get to the point you can one-hit everything, in which case the Needler is pretty darn good. But that is the Long-Lass rifle. It has a little bit of penetration, just a little bit of braking on the actual Sniper Shot ability, so it does have some penetration, but nothing on the other two. Now, worth noting here that it doesn't have any Fleshbane, so this item seems to be lacking a second strength at the moment. Its first primary strength is doing single target damage, either by means of critical hit build, which the other weapons do just as well, or you can do a little bit of single target damage. The full auto is quite versatile because it can be used to do lots of damage to one target, or spreading damage quite evenly and quickly amongst lots of targets. But the weapon doesn't have another strength. There's no extra utility here, and, well, there's nothing else. The fourth ability, yes, it pierces, but it instantly overheats your weapon. only useful if you're going to be swapping weapons quite frequently and you're intending on basically blasting someone before bringing out your other weapon. As we've said before, the game doesn't really encourage you to do that at the moment, and I don't really see this as an incentive to, because it doesn't do that much damage. So not something I would really factor in to a build. The Mega Blast for me is Mega Balls. Now, thus far, just going over the 4 weapons again, we have a clear sort of identity for each. We have the Exitus, really high single target damage. Mind you, that being said, all the sniper rifles are pretty good at single target damage, but the Exitus really shines because it's got the most anti-armor, armor bypass. It's got moderately good AoE capacity, and it comes with a bucket ton of utility in the way of stopping an enemy in their tracks. The actual sniper rifle itself, far more AoE anti-trash orientated, but with adequate single target control and damage. I actually find it's probably the more versatile of the rifles. You just have to get into the habit of using the rotation correctly and not using the goddamn dot ability too much, because that will really make you feel like you're using an underwhelming weapon. Now, as well as that, remember we do have the Needler, which is more and not quite so much anti-armor orientated, but does specialize in doing high amounts of spike damage to a target and slowing and controlling them. Okay, so not so much CC, but slowing, controlling, giving yourself movement buffs. It's a fun weapon to use, very mobile, very sort of versatile in a way, and the anti-heal is of course the shining star of that weapon. Lastly, the Long Last, just as a recap, it's pretty crap. It does have some single target potential, not a lot of anti-armor in comparison to the others, not a lot of trash clear in comparison to the others, and not a lot of utility or versatility in comparison to the others. The only thing it does have going for it is if you manage your heat well, you don't have to reload very often, and maybe that's to be factored into the damage, because if the damage is comparable and you reload 20% less often, maybe you're doing 20% more damage. It's not something I've really observed, but it is something to perhaps factor in. But anyone wondering, why the hell is my Signum orange? It's a relic! Suck my bowels! I finally got a relic. It took me 110 tarot missions, but I got one in the end. We won't talk about my friend who's got 2 relic weapons from doing 2 tarot missions. That's right. He is very, very close to being kicked out of the Cabal. He knows who he is. Guys, hope you've enjoyed the video. Leave me lots of feedback down below. Let me know what you think of the style of the video, and if you'd like me to carry on and do the other weapons and a similar comparison between them. Devs, hope you're listening, and guys, I'll see you next time.